Alright, welcome to my first video in a series of videos I'm going to do on painting bases. The first base that I'm going to do this video for is on Secret Weapons Alien Temple. I'm going to show you some color schemes that I use for these things. Not necessarily techniques in painting, what brushes to use, or anything like that. I use Citadel paints. Just what I use. Anyway, let's get started. I have color sets that I've created. I write down my processes that I do, each color that I use and in which order I use it in. That way, if I want the same look, if I want to try and achieve the same look again, it's not that difficult for me to do. I'm going to be doing Old Stone #2. That's just what I called it. So the colors that we're going to use is Stone Vermin Fur. Let's see, where's that at? Alright, Stone Vermin Fur. And then Stormfang Dry, which is going to be this one here. And we're going to use that for a highlight. And then a Dawnstone Layer. Okay. There's also a Dawnstone Dry. So if you hear me say the name of a paint and then layer or base or dry or technical or whichever it is, that's why. Because I don't want somebody who doesn't know to go to one of these nerd shops and try to pick up the paint and then they see the same color but 4 different types and not know which one I used. So then the Dawnstone Layer we're going to use on half of the base, not split in half. I'm just going to pick, like certain pieces like that little bitty piece right there, this one maybe, and then this big triangle piece up here I'll probably do it on. Then I'm going to use equal parts, move that out the way, equal parts of Nuln and Agrax Earthshade for the wash and shading. Then Stormfang Dry again for an additional highlight on top of that. Alright, let's get started. So, Storm Vermin Fur is up first. Be sure to shake your paints well. Most videos out there of people who use Citadel paints say to use water or some kind of paint medium to thin out the paint, which is a good idea. One, your paints will last quite a bit longer. There's other reasons for it too, such as you won't cover up detail as easily if you thin it down. So I'm going to go ahead and get started here. You're just going to cover the whole thing and make sure you get down in all the crevices. I don't worry about thinning out some of mine. If it's a layer, I may or may not thin it out. It really just depends. If you have really small detail, like this right here, that's small detail, but it still stands off quite a bit. But that little crack right next to it, well, probably can't see it. There's a little bitty crack right next to it that you can't really see. I'm careful about my painting whenever I paint in details without thinning down my paint, that the detail won't get lost. It's really a preference, your preference, whether or not you care about that crack or not. Personally, I don't care about that crack, but
alright, next step.
The crack will probably be covered up by
now I said
that you rebase
Stormfang highlight.
That's what we're going to do, is a Stormfang highlight. I only have these 2 dries. I need to get some more dries. I would prefer I also have a Dawnstone. You know what? I'm going to use Dawnstone. I'm going to use Dawnstone for the first one. Okay. No, scratch that. Stormfang for the first one. I'm going to use Dawnstone for the second one. So we're going to highlight this, get a nice highlight going. So whenever I go and wash it down, the edges will still be kind of bright. And then the second one that I'm going to do is the Dawnstone, which is darker. It's still brighter than this, but it's darker than the highlight that I'm about to do right now. And I just want it bright-ish, so whenever I go to do this my shading, it'll show up fairly well. All right, so I loaded up my brush. Shit. All right. Now I'm just going to take it across the edges, just the corners of everything. Some people go back and forth. I prefer not to go. I prefer to just go in one direction to start with, to make sure I get the corners that the edges that I'm wanting to get. It's also why I chopped this brush in half. You can see how it's uneven and jacked up looking. And then I set it down and I pressed it down really hard, feathered out the bristles. That way I could get a really good feather brush. I'm sure there's brushes out there that are already made like that, but this was a cheap brush. I didn't feel like spending $10-15 on something that I could spend $1 on and just jack it up myself. Kind of like blue jeans that you buy for $60-80 that have holes in them. Alright, so this is my first time doing a video on painting, and actually this is my first time doing a video like this where you can actually see like my workspace. I've done a few other videos for like Xbox, that kind of crap, but let's go on there. So if the lighting is bad, I apologize. You should have seen the first video that I tried to do. It was really bad. You couldn't even see the highlight that I was doing. No, you can't find it because I didn't post it. I believe if you do a video that bad, you shouldn't even put it up. Anyway, there's the highlighting. Okay, you can see it. I'm pretty sure you can see it. Now for the next part, put this dry back. We're going to put Dawnstone. Where's it at? There we go. I'll put Dawnstone on a couple of the pieces just to give variation in the stone color. It helps with dimension. When you're doing stone, it's good to note that if you go look at weathered stone, 9 times out of 10, if it's a bunch of pieces, not like a wall, I'm not talking about a wall, I'm talking about like busted rocks that you see at, say, like a construction yard, you'll notice that they look like they're different in color. This is because they don't all weather the same or at the same speed. Alright, so that, and I mean, for this kind of stuff I use like a number 0, 00 brush or smaller. Actually, in this case, I am going to have to use one slightly smaller. Let's see, that's a 0. Let's use my 0. Alright. So I'm going to take this little piece here. And like I said, we're going to do another highlight, so don't worry about going over the highlights. That's why there's 2 highlight phases for this. And then, so that, and then this one. That feels pretty dry. So we're going to move on to the next part, the wash. And the wash is going to be 2 parts Nuln Oil. Well, equal mix. It's an equal mix, right? I'm going to put this out of the way. Run my little palette up here. And make sure you shake your shades, mix them up. I noticed one time that I went to use my shade, and when I brushed it on, it was weird. It coated really weird. It was almost like it was colored water, and the coloration was just, it was nasty. It was complete and utter garbage. Make sure you mix them. Your coverage area will be nice and smooth if you do that. Alright, that's my little brush. Now, get up a good bit of that. Alright, there's those. And next up, clean that out. Next up is the Earth Shade, which is a brown tone. Nuln is going to be black-ish. Earth Shade is going to be, like the name would indicate, brown, earth, earthy in color. And it just makes it really well. Alright. Clean off the brush. These shades form a very hard like crust. I don't know, it's crusty. It'll make your brushes very crusty if you do not clean them out. Alright. I'll go ahead and move this off to the side now. Now what you want to do is you want to get a smaller brush, load it up, right? And then kind of dab it on there, push it around. Don't push, just lightly touch it. I like to, now this isn't for any particular reason other than to get a large coverage area, right? It's not because if you try to wipe it on, it'll take the paint off. That's not why I do it like this. I do it like this so I can get a lot of coverage quickly. That's a key. That's kind of key with these washes, these shades, is that you cover as much as you can, as quickly as you can. Otherwise, it will look blotchy. Blotchy is what I was looking for when I was describing what happens when I didn't mix it up. It looked blotchy. Alright. Now, I'm not going to sit here and make you wait and watch for this stuff to dry. I'm going to go ahead and shut off the video and be back to finish out the rest of it. What I'm doing right now is trying to pull up excess. All right, so dry off your brush and then kind of hit the areas that have excess that you want to get rid of, and your brush will immediately soak it up. But these lines here, you want to be filled. Okay, and let me bring it a little closer to you. So these lines, these cracks and crevices, you want to be filled with the shade. Down here on the surfaces, not so much. You want it covered. Don't miss a spot. If you miss a spot, it'll look stupid. It'll look so stupid. You'll come back after it's dried, and you can tell exactly where you missed putting shade on. It's like cartoon clown difference, day and night difference. So anyway, shades take about, I don't know, 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes to completely dry. It just depends on how thick you layered it on there. I actually did miss a spot right here on the corner. There we go. All right, this is pretty dry. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a little bit more. All right, don't just, something to remember about these processes is that they're somewhat cookie cutter, but not exactly. So as you can see, now that it's pretty much dried, right here in the crevices, it's not as dark as I'd like it. I know it probably looks dark to you. It's a little light colored. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up some. And then I'm just going to drag a little bit. I'm not trying to cover the rest of the base. I will here, just because I wiped off too much. All right. What you can do with these shades is you can build up a look. All right. Once it dries, you can add more. It'll darken it more. Add more to recesses and edges until you achieve the exact look that you're wanting. And what we're going to do now is take this Dawnstone Dry. If you remember, the other one that we used was Storm Fang for the bright highlight. Now that we're done with this, we're going to use this Dawnstone Dry as a kind of part of the finishing touch. It's not really the finishing touch, but part of it. And so you want to go ahead and kind of dab in there. Load up the tip. Wipe off your excess. And then get to brushing. And I'm sorry if I'm hitting the camera and you see some lumping going on. And I'm going to go back and forth in all directions on this one. It does not matter. It's kind of how you feel type thing. Okay. That's it for that. There we go. So you have the edges nice and touched. A little bit more is right here along this edge. I'm going to leave that. That's just fine. And that's pretty much it for making the stone look, okay? I'm going to go ahead and finish this tutorial with adding a few little touches to it. If anyone, I'm not here to promote other people. Let me just say I'm not here. But I am still new at this. Two, Sarastro does painting tutorials and videos. He is excellent. He does a lot of highlighting and touch-up work after he does all the painting. If you want to know about highlighting and touch-ups to really make your pieces pop, so to speak, watch his tutorials. He's really, really good at, well, all of it, but he's really good at explaining and showing you how to thin down, mix up, and use your paints to layer an effect of highlighting, and they look really, really good. So what I'm going to do is these little piles of rocks that you see. Got a pile of rocks right here, and along this edge here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get this Lustrian undergrowth that I was showing you earlier, and I'm going to get a small brush, and you're not going to see much of the, I'll just tell you this right now, you're not going to see much of the Lustrian undergrowth effect because we're not putting on very much. It's more or less for the color. Right? I really like this color. So I can dab a little bit, get a little dabble on the end of your brush, okay, and then just kind of blotch it. Try to be careful. Don't try to really brush it on there. You'll end up getting it onto the rest of the stone, and you'll have to do some cleanup, touch-up work. Unless you want to get it on the rest of the stone, if you're trying to go for that look. So there's that right there, and I'm trying to wipe that chunk off on there. There we go. So yeah, I gave Mr. Sarastro a shout out. He uses Citadel paints. Well, in the videos that I've watched, he uses Citadel paints because I have Descent, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to see how people were painting Descent characters, heroes and monsters. And so he's the guy that I found first, and the way he explains stuff really does well for me. How he explains how to use paints and mixing. Something else, I don't know if he said this or if somebody else said it, but you don't have to thin down your paints with water. You can use a shade. You can use one of your shades if you want. So let's say you've, and this is the exact scenario that was used. Whoever it was, I don't think it was Sarastro, but whoever it was using black. He wanted to thin down the black, but did not want the tone of the black to lighten. So instead of using water, he used Nuln Oil. He mixed in a drop or two of Nuln Oil with on his palette, and it stayed black as black, but thinned it out. and I thought that was really interesting. It's kind of a double feature there. Food for thought. So if you want to use that, if you want to use a similar color to thin out your paint instead of using water, then by all means. Even Sarastro said that water works just fine, but using a medium is better. You get better consistency. I would say the same for using a shade. I'd say it might not be as good as using a medium, but it looks better than water, and you don't lose the, I don't know how you would call it, the richness of the color. So, well, there you have it. Okay. Let's see, there it goes, focus. Focus! So, dabbed a little green on the piles of rocks. And the last thing you really have to do here is to paint the edge. I'm not going to waste your time. You can paint the edge whatever color you want. What I do is, generally speaking, I use Mechanicus Standard Gray. It's what Sarastro used. Just so happens that's what he uses in the videos that I watched. But use your own judgment. If it's a brighter piece, if you're doing like a desert theme, then you probably don't want to use Mechanicus Gray. If you have desert themed pieces, you might want to use something like XV88, which kind of looks like that, or what's the other one called? Averland Sunset. They also have sand paints. So whatever your preference. But anyway, that's how you get that this old stone look.